It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. So I had seen those two deer that had worked out of the cornfield. They both went off to the west. I got up the tree, nothing. I was screwing around on my phone. It's getting to be prime time. And I just heard like something sneeze 50 yards away from me. And it was that deer, the buck I had eventually shot. I think he's just like blowing bugs out of his nose.
Probably.
And apparently he forgot his thermocell, which now Cole is a true a believer. Is that what we call you?
Yeah, if you look at
you're
my
a thermocell believer now.
if you look at my most recent Amazon purchase, it's a thermocell.
There you go. I brought two, and I've only been able to use one because Cole stole my other one. But I had my thermocell running, so the bugs weren't bugging me. But man, that deer was miserable. That's what I did. I just took him out of his misery. But it was this case of like mistaken identity for quite a while. So I saw him at 50 yards. He was just in an opening where I could like make his head out, and turned his head sideways to me, and I was like, "Oh, it's a buck." And like it looked from the side, kind of in the it wasn't dark, but just in the canopy shadow that I was in. It's like, okay, like it's an okay looking buck from the side. Could be a huge buck, probably 50, 60 yards away. Couldn't quite tell. I didn't get out my binoculars. I didn't range find him. I just was kind of like, I'm not going to shoot that far anyway. And then he turned his head towards me, and I was like, I don't know. He's just kind of like a little basket rack right at the ears. So it wasn't a buck that I was thinking I would shoot. So I didn't even grab my bow. I was not prepared at all to shoot him. He started working my way, and at like 40 yards, he turned broadside. And 40 yards is about as far as I'll shoot. But he just kept getting in these like dark spots in the woods where he would like disappear on me. And then every time I'd get a look at him, his head would be down behind a tree. And at 40 yards, I had a shot at him. I think I picked my bow up when he got to 30 yards. Because there were a couple times I caught a glimpse of him, and I'd be like, maybe that is a nice buck. And so at 30 yards, he stopped. The trail I was hunting was at like 20 yards. So that was actually where I thought they would kind of come through. And he got to where that trail was. And that was kind of like the make or break point, because I had walked up and down it because I was putting the cell cam out. So I felt like if he got to 20 yards, he was going to smell me. Well, he blew right past that, and all of a sudden he's at 10 yards. And as he was walking in there, like I got a glimpse, and I was like, oh shit, I think this is a nice buck. But not enough of a glimpse where it was like, I'm shooting him the next chance I get. So at 10 yards, he's back with his head down like in a bush. And so I can see his body plain as day. I got a perfect broadside shot at him, and his head is literally in a bush. And I'm just like, shit, like I cannot confirm nor deny if this is a nice buck. And it's the first night. We got 5 days we're here. I don't want to shoot a little buck the first night. Yeah. Be like, oh shit, like I screwed that up.
Yeah.
And so he's at 10 yards, and then he picks his head up and he starts walking right at me. And then I'm like, oh crap, like it's a nice buck. But there's a tree between me and him. And so he disappears behind that. And I think he's going to come out kind of off my left side behind me. And so I'm pulled back, and I'm like looking for him. And then I catch him coming here on the other side of the tree. And now he's like 2 yards away, and he's like right under me. And so I had to like swing back, and you saw the tree that I shot through. Like, I was only 2 sticks up. I'm maybe like 10, 12 feet up max. So I'm not high off the ground, because that was just the height I needed to be in the tree to be able to like see out onto the field, see where he ended up coming from. So I'm not high up, and half of my shit is laying on the ground. Like I brought 4 sticks with, so 2 of them are just like thrown down on the ground underneath my tree. And he's like standing over one of them damn near. Mm-hmm. And there was a tree, a smaller tree right next to me. And in hindsight, when I looked at it, I was like, I don't know how I got an arrow through there. Like it was a pretty bushy tree, and I just ignored it. I just flat out looked right. I just looked right past it. He was 1, maybe 2 yards away from the base of my tree, and I'm basically shooting straight down at him to the point where, like on a bow and arrow for folks, I mean, most people probably haven't shot a bow and arrow. You're trying to line up when you pull a bow back. You're like lining up your mouth and your nose and your hand and the sight and the housing, and like, so you try to get all these things the same every time you shoot. And I'm like trying to, and when you look down, it like changes the angle of everything, and it changes the angle of your body.
And close shots are hard too, because
I mean, it's straight down. The arrow's coming out different. It's like it doesn't even have a chance to like get on a flight path.
Yeah.
And so I'm like leaning down, trying to get my face onto my bow where it usually gets, but I'm like twisted funny. And then I realized like he's literally 12 feet away from the tip of my arrow.
Yeah.
And I just I even took my face off my bow and I just looked and I just fired.
Yeah.
My face was not on my bow because I was just like, there's no point.
You can tell, by the way,
What?
that you didn't take a good shot. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I hit
He's
right,
dead.
like
That
it
deer
went,
didn't go far.
No.
it went so I hit the right side of his body, right behind the shoulder, and it went through one lung, and I think it caught liver, we figured.
Yeah.
And went right out the bottom of him. And so it was just like,
It was weird, like,
if you would have dropped that deer straight down onto a post,
yeah.
like a
Yeah.
spiky post, and he got shish kebabbed on
Yeah.
it. That's basically what my arrow did
Well,
to
you,
him
like,
on the right side of his body.
you could have speared him with the arrow. You didn't even need the bow. You could just like, nah.
I don't think it would have penetrated quite as much.
Did I tell you about the dude that I saw a YouTube video spearing deer?
You did.
sweet.
You did.
We'll not go there.
All
Close
right.
kicking in.
Different episode. So I shoot him, and I have I don't remember the brand, but I have a knock that lights up. So when the arrow releases from my bow, that lights up so I can see where the arrow goes, right? And so I see the arrow. I at the time I actually thought it like just went right through him and stuck in the ground. I could just see the knock laying there. Turned out when he spun, the arrow didn't stick in the ground. The arrow kind of spun and was just laying on its side. I didn't even look for blood. I grabbed the arrow. The first 2/3 of the arrow had nothing on it. So I was like, oh, like, what did I hit that the first 2/3 of the arrow didn't have a thing on it? I mean, like some hair and a little bit of tallow. The back third of the arrow was like normal blood-soaked arrow.
Probably because it stayed in him or something like that.
Well, and I'm just like, did it just blow through him so fast at that
Yeah.
distance that it just didn't like the
it-
blood didn't even have time
And
to
just
get
straight
on the
down,
arrow.
not even like,
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I mean, like he was so close.
yeah.
That arrow was going as fast as that arrow goes out of that
Yeah.
bow. And so he spun and he ran straight to the east. There's this 30-yard strip between the creek and the cornfield. And he went basically to where I saw him originally, 50, 60 yards away. He went that way and then he just disappeared. I never heard him crash or anything like that. And so I got down, and now like here's where the business lessons of this started to come in. One is like, you just got to go for it, right? Like I think the fact that we split up was a good idea just to cover more places.
Yep.
And I'm not saying like divide and conquer is always a good idea, but like when you're in the intel getting mode, like
Yeah.
you got to get as many data points as possible. And
Data.
sometimes you stumble into like, here we go, like found this data point. So it was useful. I mean, I'm glad we didn't all four go down and bushwhack with you.
Yeah.
Like clearly in hindsight, we made a great decision.